please? Here.
Vice President Richard Lindsay.
Here.
Secretary Nick Campo. Treasurer George Seifert. Trustee Lisa Milton.
Here.
Trustee Carrie Nicholson.
Here.
Trustee Larry Williams.
Okay, we can observe our customary moment of silence. Carrie, can you lead us in the pledge, please? Can I have an approval of the agenda, including the appointment of Lisa Middleton as secretary for the session?
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Couple pieces. If we could ask everybody, we do get some interference, so if everybody can put their phones to airplane mode, that'll make it a lot easier for the microphones and things like that. Then we're going to go to members of the audience may address the board on agenda items only. We would like to note that there is an item that does not identify an individual, item number 15, for due process. So as you make comments, please refrain from using any names at this point, please. And we'll start. The audience may address the board on agenda items only. Again, we're asking to keep those to 3 minutes each, please.
Good evening. My name is Johanna Schulz, and I'm the president of the Marshall Teachers Association. I'm here on behalf of my colleagues who are all very concerned about agenda item number 13 and actually 15 of personnel and the non-renewal of a district employee who is a tireless advocate for teachers and for students. My big concern that in my heart, in my gut, with bringing this non-renewal to note it, or following through with this non-renewal, is that this individual has been a tireless advocate all year for the well-being of our students at Harrington Elementary School, the well-being of our teachers and staff at Harrington Elementary School, and it feels like to a lot of other provisional teachers that it's not safe for them to say, hey, I'm concerned. And that is a message that I've gotten repeatedly from my membership. And it pains me to say that, and it's not something I say lightly, because it's something that they come to me and they say, Joe, I'm nervous, I don't know if I can say this. And I coach up people, I teach kids to advocate for themselves, I'm the health teacher, that's what I do. And I'm worried that by doing this, we're gonna send a message that our provisional teachers and our young teachers and our new to the district teachers don't have that same voice that someone who is tenured has. So with that being said, I'm gonna step away for now and let you listen to what my esteemed colleagues, representatives want to share with you publicly today.
Thanks for letting me speak tonight on behalf of the person being terminated at this point. I'm Dave Kearns. I've been a 7th grade teacher and a high school swim coach for over 20 years in this district. The person that you are considering tonight is a very caring and compassionate person, very dedicated to her family and her profession. She made the choice to come to our district after teaching for over 10 years in Lakeview. While at Lakeview, she obtained the ranking of highly effective as a teacher, and almost every year she was there. She chose to come because she wanted to make a difference for the kids at Harrington. She greets them almost every day with hugs and high fives. She has a very structured teaching style and shows a huge amount of caring and support for her kiddos, as she calls them. Almost all of her kids are showing growth, both as students and individuals. In fact, she was rated by Linda Bennick in the fall as a highly effective when my wife asked her during the meeting with her. My wife has asked repeatedly for a hard copy of these evaluations for months and has yet to receive it. So if the district is firing her for unsatisfactory evaluations, shouldn't she at least be able to see them? The district's own contract says that she was supposed to have an individual development plan to help her overall progress, which the administration did not do. I am very frustrated by what is happening to our district right now. I don't want you, the board, to be misled. She is not being let go because of poor performance, but it is really because someone just doesn't care for her. Keli will speak up when she feels something is not right, especially when it comes to her students or her fellow staff members. As a consequence, she's being let go. She becomes an easy target as a probationary teacher. The fact that she is being let go because of poor performance is simply not true. I feel this decision is the exact opposite of what should be happening at Marshall Public Schools. You should be hiring more people like her who will stand up for the youth of our school district. She came to Harrington willing and hoping to make a difference, and she has in a very positive way. She communicates with parents almost daily. She is caring and firm with her kids, which helps sets them up to be successful both in the classroom and in their lives. When she decided to come, not all the positions were even filled, and I know the district was struggling to fill those positions. So why are they letting her go? Simply, again, because somebody doesn't care for her. I would like to end by asking each of the board members that before you make a decision, please take the opportunity to speak with all the teachers at Harrington to see what teaching in this building is like. The atmosphere from the administration is poor and has not led to the success that we as a school district would like to see in all our buildings. I challenge you to hold a forum to speak with just the teachers to hear it from their mouths. They are most all probationary teachers, and I am sure they are worried about what is happening to Keli and that it could happen to them. But maybe in a closed session with the board, they will be able to speak freely. I therefore ask you to not accept the district's position of letting her go on the basis of her quote-unquote poor evaluations, which again is just not true. Thank you.
Hello. Dear Board of Education, thank you for serving us. I am writing and expressing my concern regarding the recent letter of termination received by my colleague on Thursday afternoon. I'm hoping to ask a few questions and most importantly share some concerns I have regarding the process of termination for probationary teachers at Marshall Public Schools. First, this teacher and colleague was handed her termination letter in the school hallway during school hours. Is this what's best for the teacher or the students who had 2 hours left in their educational day? Second, the reason for this person's termination was due to, quote, unsatisfactory performance as reflected by her evaluations. As we heard, that no evaluation was ever present to read, and has the district followed the declaration on the MPS website, which says, the superintendent will ensure that all probationary teachers are provided an individual development plan, evaluated in a timely manner by appropriate administrators, notified of areas of which performance is not meeting expectations, and these probationary teachers are provided assistance in improving their performance. Third, who exactly found Keli's performance, or the performance unsatisfactory? She was formally observed in November by an administrator who didn't share the information or data that this person's performance was not meeting expectations. If so, we would go back to that statement and say what was put in place. Therefore, 5 months later, there was informal observation by 2 administrators. One, I'm not sure, has been trained in our current evaluation model, and no results were shared after this point. Lastly, while I'm not trained to observe and evaluate teachers, I have the opportunity in my role as a reading specialist to work in many classrooms with teachers every day. I'm impressed with the practices I see all over our district, and I'm proud to work with these people. The dedication to students, especially at Harrington, is unbelievable. And moreover, my coworker who was handed this termination letter exemplifies what it means to be a great teacher. She is committed to her students and their needs, and she plans, just like we should, using her data and her instruction. And she fosters not just academic growth, which we will hear about and have heard about, but her personal growth among her students. Finally, and I think most importantly, the idea of losing a strong teacher who is a team player has been stressful for our staff. At Harrington, over 3/4 of our teachers have probationary status, over 76%. What can we do to assure them that the district practices due process? Please do not accept the recommendation that has been put forth. We need this second grade teacher in our building. Simply put, our students need her. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Paysons. I've been before you on several occasions, and I'm disappointed that I'm here tonight under these circumstances. And I'd like to say for a variety of reasons, but it's for one reason. We have a tremendous teacher who I've been in her classroom on many occasions and have been able to see her in action, that received a termination letter, and it was not a non-renewal. The letter clearly said termination, and that the termination would be decided by the board on April 23rd, would be recommended to the board on April 23rd, which is why we're here tonight. She was handed the letter in the hallway after she sent her students off to go to PE. I was a little astonished when I heard that. And the letter said she was being terminated because of unsatisfactory evaluations. She had an observation in the fall, did not receive unsatisfactory feedback. As a matter of fact, received no written feedback, but received verbal feedback that was not unsatisfactory. She received no midterm evaluation at all, which is required. Her IDP, which, and I have a checklist that we'll talk about in closed session, which clearly states that it's done with the administrator and the teacher. She was handed an IDP. She did not accept it. She said, I don't know what this is. I've had absolutely no input into this. So she has no IDP. She had a formal evaluation last week. We have seen no input from that. We've seen no information about the observation. So the evaluation has not been completed because the observation has only been done. There's been no evaluation. There's been no discussion between the teacher and the administrator about that, the observation. And to receive a letter that she's being terminated based on unsatisfactory evaluations, I've been doing this job for 7 years. I do it in lots of districts. I've never heard of that. If you're going to terminate or if you're going to non-renew, the teachers must get an opportunity to rebut this. The timeline, and Dr. Davis and I talked about the timeline. I said, why are we doing this so quickly? Granted, it has to be done 60 days before, but I don't know why we couldn't have started this process with our probationary teachers when we came back from spring break. She had 48 hours, and she had nothing to rebut because she had not received her evaluation yet. So We've had some issues in the past with evaluations. This process is cumbersome. I understand that. I applaud every administrator that has to go through this, but this one is flawed, and we'll discuss it more in closed session. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing me, board, and everyone in the audience tonight. My name is Danielle Corcoran, and I teach 4th grade at Walters and Marshall. I've been a Marshall School employee for 27 years, and I have worked extensively with contracts. I used to negotiate contracts with, way back, Lou Giannunzio, Bob Curry, Joyce Phillips. And a large part of that process is communication. And I think communication is something that goes along with what we're talking about a little bit tonight with the whole evaluation piece. There's a lot of things that have changed in Marshall schools in the state of Michigan with the 3rd grade reading law and our new evaluation system. And I have to say that people are nervous about these changes, about these things that are happening, especially new employees. I'm just still getting my brain around the Danielson model and the rubric that I'm supposed to analyze to give myself a self-evaluation. And I think that many people feel that way. There's a very large amount of stress because we're not sure which way to go. And we have to be able to talk to our administrators. We have to be able to reach out and talk to them. And I've worked for Linda Bennick and Paul Holbrook. And both of those people I've been able to reach out to and talk to and express my concerns as a teacher and working for the union. And right now I'm feeling like maybe we need more of that teachers are feeling they can't talk to administration, that they're feeling like if they do, there's going to be a target on their back. I'm up here tonight because I'm really not afraid of that, I don't think, because I don't feel that's the way it should be, and I don't feel like we should worry about that. But there are people in the audience that I told not to speak tonight. I said, I don't think you should. I think that maybe you should just lay low right now because maybe something would happen about that, and it's not right. We can't put things in the newspaper that say, Marshall schools are doing great, and look at all these wonderful things, and behind closed doors, we have teachers that have anxiety because they can't tell their administrator their concerns. I can do that at my building. I can do that and not feel afraid about retribution or someone giving me a letter at 2 in the afternoon on a Thursday. But is that the case in every building? Can we all say that? And I don't think that's right. I don't think that's the way Marshall School should be. And again, I've been here for 27 years, and I'm not proud of that. And I'm not proud of it for my colleagues because I feel for them and I feel that they have anxiety about things that are going on. And we should be able to talk about things with administration and not feel like we're going to be targeted for it. And I personally think that we can get to that point, but it's going to take a little bit of effort on everyone's part. And I think that that's something we need to make a goal, because we should be able to disagree with someone and have a conversation with them and then come to terms with how it should look. And I just did that with my boss a week ago. And he can tell you. Anyway, thank you for listening.
I'm Keli Me, and both of my kids went through Marshall schools. I worked with the person that we are talking about right now in Lakeview for several years. I taught EI, special education, and had several emotionally impaired and learning disabled children in her room, and was in her room constantly working with these students. These students not only flourished in her room, but tended to exceed the goals that we had set for them. She was very good at having separate goals for them, separate curriculum for them. She never, I worked with a lot of teachers who didn't want to have a separate curriculum for these students or separate goals for these students. She never gave me a hard time for that. I volunteered in her class for a couple times at Harrington. She had quite a group, and sometimes it was like popcorn popping up, popping down all the time. She never raised her voice to those children. They were all working and succeeding at all times. I am flabbergasted that this has taken place. I couldn't believe when she told me. I have worked with several of you board members throughout the years. I've had my own frustrations with Marshall School Board as my kids went through Marshall, but always felt like I was heard. And I hope that you listen to the other teachers and the people who are speaking tonight and really give this a thought and a fair choice and a fair chance to this teacher, because she really needs one and deserves one. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Danielle Pegg. I'm a kindergarten teacher at Harrington. I typed this letter using the name that I can't say, so please excuse me as I pause and rethink my words. In addition to my colleague having outstanding growth as demonstrated by her data, my colleague has also gone above and beyond the call of duty for her students. Here are a few examples. During this school year, I have observed my colleague as she has worked with students not only in her classroom, but throughout their personal lives. My colleague has set time aside outside of school hours for her students. On numerous occasions, she has stepped up and taken one of her students to a non-related school swim lessons in addition to his meets. In addition to being there for her students after school hours and on the weekends, she also allows her students to eat breakfast with them in her room. She has generously given up her morning plan time to allow students into her room so they start the day off right. To give you a little idea of how much time this equates to, it's 15 minutes a day. That's 45 hours within the school year. That's just over a week's worth of unpaid yet gladly given time with her students so that they are not triggered by everyday trauma in their lives. If it wasn't enough time with her students, she has also volunteered to teach after-school tutoring. She's also a mentor for 3 LBN college students as she supports them in their learning of this profession. She has gladly volunteered her time to aid the school in hosting events such as literacy nights. She's assisted in planning and working each of these events. My colleague truly exemplifies the type of teacher Harrington not only wants, but needs. Her data clearly shows that she has made great strides with her students and has proven how much she goes above and beyond for her students and her coworkers. Losing her would be a catastrophe for our school. I ask you to please reconsider before we lose one of the best teachers Harrington has the privilege of calling our own. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kim Rugg, and I'm one of the reading specialists at Harrington Elementary. I have the privilege of working with this colleague every day. She and I share several students, and I just want to say that every day she demonstrates professionalism, working with her professional learning community to reflect on the data, and she works with her teaching partner to plan instruction using Common Core standards and district resources. In addition, it is evident that my colleague has a strong understanding of educational pedagogy. For example, she has a high expectations for all of her students. Through the use of PBIS and Kagan practices, her classroom structure and management is very effective, and she differentiates instruction to meet the needs of her students individually. This colleague puts forth effort to build relationships with her students and their families through the use of positive feedback, and ongoing communication. She would start the day greeting parents and students at the front door to help create a positive environment for her students. It's evident that my colleagues' students' as evident by my colleagues' students' academic data, her students are learning and growing in all areas. Based on beginning of the year data, 49.3% of her class was reading at or above grade level. And currently, 75% of her class is reading at or above grade level. In regards to working together, I feel comfortable that she's providing the Tier 1 instruction needed to support my Tier 2, Tier 3 level instruction. I feel confident that that's happening because we plan together and we talk about the students that we share regularly. I truly believe that this colleague is an asset to Harrington's instructional staff. She goes above and beyond when it comes to teaching not only academics, but character education and coping skills that assist our students in being successful in their daily lives. It would be a detriment to current and future students to not have this colleague as their teacher and positive role model in their lives. Please do not accept the recommendation to terminate the second grade position, this person from her second grade position at Harrington Elementary. Her depth of knowledge is needed there. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Melanie S, and I'm a Spanish teacher at Marshall High School and Marshall Middle School. And I've just learned of this situation today. And I too was taken by surprise. I taught in Lakeview previous to teaching in Marshall. I left Lakeview and came to Marshall where I had previously worked because ironically, I really felt strongly about the way that I was treated as a teacher by Marshall Public Schools. I was super happy to come back to my family in Marshall. And where I have taught in many different places, I felt like a number. I felt like someone to be shuffled around. I felt that we really valued relationships at Marshall Public Schools. And also accountability for ourselves and our actions, accountability for our students' well-being and for their future, for their academics, but also their social needs. I taught with the person in question during my time at Lakeview. I was a traveling teacher and popped into her room a couple of times a week. And things can't be hidden. I popped in, and kids are kids. Kids are going to act a certain way. They don't change automatically because someone else is coming into the room. This person had very strong routines, high expectations for her students, the caring, the discipline, the classroom management was very evident and made my job so much easier because all of that was taken care of before I got there. And she was a strong presence in the school, a very informed person, and I just can't believe that we're in this situation. And I think accountability works both ways, that we're to be accountable as teachers, but there is also an expectation that we understand if we're not doing something that we are to do, that there needs to be communication. And it seems ridiculous, frankly, to tell someone that they're not doing a good job by handing them a letter and saying this is it, sorry, you haven't cut it, without any prior conversation to that effect. We would never do that to students. And I feel more and more that things that we would never do to our students seem fine to do to our teachers.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, we appreciate your comments. We're going to continue to move forward and go to academic highlights. Kindergarten Roundup, Hughes Elementary Principal Matt Lefebvre.
Good evening, everybody. I am Matt Lefebvre. I am principal of Hughes Elementary. Certainly, as a former MTA president, I know nights like this can be very challenging. But for the focus of our next part of this meeting, we're going to do something a little different, and we're going to talk about kindergarten, especially those kids who are coming up at our next kindergarten class. So what I wanted to do tonight for the benefit of the board is kind of walk through the process we go through here in Marshall to get students and especially parents ready to go for their adventure in kindergarten, which would start the fall of next year. So this is a modified version of a slideshow that we show to all parents at every kindergarten night that we hold. And we'll kind of go through this and go through some of the questions that come up and some of the events that we have. Special thanks to Paul Holbrook for putting together the slideshow. Thanks, Paul. By the way, I was supposed to do this in March, but I was sick, so I will move it along here as best I can. So, during the course of these nights, students come with their families, and they get to do a few activities with the help of our kindergarten team of teachers, while different people of the administration and teachers and transportation and nursing and so forth give information to parents. Now, most of that information is detailed in these packets that you have in front of you, so you can leaf through those as we go through this PowerPoint. Some of the stuff that's a little harder to read is on pieces of paper in the packet. So while the parents are being taught what kindergarten is like and the procedure that they're going to have to go through to get their kids ready to go, students see a classroom. In some cases, they get to ride a school bus. This is from our first night that we had in February. They participate in PE and have an opportunity to get familiar with our kindergarten staff. This one was at Walters. And at the end, they receive a book that's furnished by the MTA as part of their getting ready and getting excited about going to kindergarten. While they're doing that, parents learn about transportation, they learn about counseling, a day in kindergarten, life at the Shamrock Center, and special classes that they have. Special classes meaning PE, art, music, and technology. Also, they learn about how the school and nurse support our students. Readiness Kindergarten comes up quite a bit, so we have a little bit about that, and you'll get to see that in this presentation. And the big thing is reviewing ways to have your kid get ready for kindergarten and making sure parents are on that right track. I'll talk a little bit about where we get our students from, too, toward the end of this presentation. So we have 3 nights. We modified it this year, so each night looks the same. It used to be a sequential thing. I'm sorry, we have 4 nights. It used to be a sequential thing, but now most of what they're getting in one presentation is what they're getting in another presentation. The only difference is one of the nights that we have coming up actually this Wednesday is just if you didn't make the first 2 presentations in Marshall. And then Harrington has their own night as well to hopefully get more families to come who live in the Albion area, and they get the same. They can bring their kids. They have the bus ride. They have activities in the classroom. All those things that are at the other nights as well. So the one you see highlighted in yellow is from the first night. We had our second night on March 20th. That was at Hughes. We talked more about kindergarten screening, which is something we do in May, which I'll talk about toward the end of this presentation. There's question and answer and that type of thing at the second night. And then the third night's coming up on Wednesday. That's just in case you didn't make the first 2 nights and you get this whole presentation. And we hope to get a few more families come in for that. And then coming up May 2nd here at Harrington, will be a little bit longer night because we have the kids come in again, and parents are encouraged to complete the whole enrollment procedure here that first night, because we want to be mindful of parents' work schedules, that type of thing. We're trying to get more parents enrolled when they come to these kindergarten nights here at Harrington. So among the things that parents get to see while the kids are having fun, they learn about kindergarten because they hadn't been in kindergarten in a while, and for many of them it's their first experience with school. Many of our parents that come, it's their first kid. Obviously they're very nervous. Some of our parents who come, it's kid 2 or 3 and they know the whole routine, but we talk about what kindergarten is like. So I'm not going to read it for you, kind of read as we go here. This part's mostly about what we talk about over the course of the presentation. We talk about the routine that gets established early on in kindergarten, including the morning meeting and what goes on at the morning meeting. Some of the Sanford Harmony, Mind Up, PBIS material that we've talked about at previous board meetings are things that are implemented during that time. The social and emotional part of being together with another group of kids is really emphasized during that morning meeting time. Also other things that are important for 5-year-olds that you don't remember, like what day is it and what the weather is like, right? Things that we mostly know most of the time, right? So, you know, carpet time, morning meeting. I see it almost every day in all the kindergartens I walk through. We talk to parents about what reading looks like in the literacy block, and there's some more information on some of the sheets you have in your packet that go into more detail here. We talk, though, about best fit books. We talk about where work is done. We talk about sight words and practicing reading skills. This would be not something we do the first day of kindergarten, but certainly we want our kids to get there as time goes on. More like that. I think that's a buddy reader, though. So word work. Kindergartners can be very cute. This is in your packet if you can't read it for sure, but we also give to parents how to get your child ready for kindergarten literacy. Many times we have a teacher or kindergarten teacher present more detailed information on what the literacy block looks like and what kindergartners are expected to know as they go through a year of learning at kindergarten at that level in their reading and what they're able to write, which we talk about next. So we have the opportunity in kindergarten classrooms, and all our classrooms really, to write narratives, opinions, and informational pieces. So there you see a kindergartner's real work. And writing becomes, actually I'm very impressed by the writing we get this time of year from our kindergartners. We talk about math. Number sense, and some of the things that they could do at home for math. So, kindergarten writing, we give this, this is in your packet as well, talks about the stages of writing we see in kindergarten, and hopefully you get to that stage 5 where they start making complete sentences by this time of year. We talk about sight words that they should know and can practice at home, and maybe hopefully practice over the summer as well. And then math, we talk about the goals that we have for the end of the year at kindergarten. And for some of our parents, when they see this for the first time, it is a little bit of an overwhelming shot, just because this is end of the year kindergarten when kids are already, most kids are 6 years old and they've had a whole year of schooling. And many of them can get to this point by the end of the year in math and their writing goals as well. I took out a lot of slides here, guys, but we also talk about the social studies and science things we do in kindergarten. There's some of the activities that are mostly themed around major events, so I think this has got to be President's Day down there at the bottom. So this is also in your packets, but how do you get your child ready for kindergarten? These are things that parents can practice at home. Many of them already do these things, but just emphasizing that this needs to be done to prepare kids for that first day, which is coming up in September. Another big thing we want to talk about at this meeting is social skills. A lot of kindergarten is how you get along with others and the ability to learn all those wonderful things we all take for granted now, like taking turns and sharing and following the rules. Well, many of our kids, this is the first time they've ever been in a structured setting like this, and they have to learn this all for the first time. So we talk about the expectations that we have for kids, but we also model it, especially during those morning meeting times and throughout the day in kindergarten, how to be a good student and how to be a good citizen at school. Actually, in teaching 5th grade, that first 5 list there is something I teach my 5th graders too. All right. Other things we talk about is the Shamrock Center, and Michelle comes up and gives a little presentation on what her program has to offer. You know, we get a lot of our kids from the Shamrock Center that go into kindergarten, so Michelle's been a great community, a partner here in talking to our families. Of course, the best way to get families interested in coming to Marshall is already have a relationship with those families, and that's something we try to do more. We've done more and more over the past number of years, so we know what kids are coming to Marshall by the time May rolls around of this year versus not knowing until August or closer to the beginning of the school year. We also talk a little bit about Readiness Kindergarten, how it's a developmental program for students who might not be prepared to take on the expectations of kindergarten full time. Of course, we have a Readiness Kindergarten at Hughes, and we have one at Harrington as well. Those kids have a year of Readiness Kindergarten. The program's capped at a certain number. It's no more than 18 students in a classroom, and then those kids move on to kindergarten the next year. And there's information about Readiness Kindergarten in your packet as well. But one of the things we give them more this information because a lot of people think their kid is not cut. They're not ready. They go to Readiness Kindergarten because they're just not ready. They're being demoted in some way and not taken to kindergarten. It's not really that. It gives them an extra year to prepare. A lot of our kids who are in Readiness Kindergarten, they come into kindergarten, it's pretty awesome. The first day of kindergarten, everybody's really nervous. My Readiness Kindergartners come striding through the door, and I'm showing everybody where everything is. This is how you get in the lunch line. I'll show you all the cool spots on the playground. They know where everything is already, where they have a year under their belt. So it's a wonderful program, and kids learn those social and emotional skills they might not have, developmental skills they might not have as well when they first arrive. We do talk about school of choice and how that opens up in June and how to apply for that. We talk about school age. We have kids, the state law is you must be 5 by September 1st, but if you're born between the 2nd and December 1st, you're eligible for a waiver to be in kindergarten. I will say this, though. A lot of our kids who are in Readiness Kindergarten, and I've been doing this 5 years at Hughes, on average, about half the kids in Readiness Kindergarten are on the second bullet point there. They're what I call they're waiver kids there. They are kids born a little bit later, so they're like a young 5. So Readiness Kindergarten, young 5s, same difference. But we find that to be a trend that we've seen in Readiness Kindergarten. No surprise, by the way. So coming up in May, we have at Harrington and at Walters, we have our kindergarten screening process. And some of the things we look at during that kindergarten screener, while the parents are filling out registration material that they need to fill out, the kindergarten teachers will take a student and a group of students and do some skills with them, subject area skills and social and emotional things, and physical things to see where they are in terms of their readiness and where they are in terms of their development. So one of the things we like to do is put them all in a small group together and have them play. Why we secretly watch. And that's not really a secret. We're just watching during the time, but that's very important. How do you interact with other children? And what does that look like? And by the way, on the bottom there, focus and stamina. Sitting on the carpet, can you sit through a whole story? For some kids, that's a big challenge when they first start kindergarten. We do an interview with the kid, one-on-one interview with one of the teachers. They get to know, do you know your name? Can you write your name eventually? Can you copy shapes? Can you tell facts about yourself? Math too. You can see the things that we work on there. The Mat Man is drawing a person. You get some very interesting people. When a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old tries to draw a person. We also test physical movement. Some of the things that to see where a kid is with their abilities with that. So there's the list of things we check. So I'll back up a second. So this all gives us a report that we give to parents. We mail it to parents, and they can call and then ask about certain things. It also lets us know if they're ready for kindergarten or not. If they're 5 by September 1st, they're going to be ready for some form of kindergarten. But it helps us also identify kids that might be better suited for Readiness Kindergarten as well. And we make that recommendation. Any parent can waive that recommendation, though, for Readiness Kindergarten. A parent does not have to put the kid in Readiness Kindergarten. They can just go into kindergarten. So these times are coming up. These are the Walters times, and then, of course, the Harrington time is on May 2nd. So things that we ask parents to do to prepare for kindergarten. You know, one of the things, too, we have a good relationship with the preschools around Marshall, so what I do over the course starting in February is I start going to these preschools and asking about their kids. And, of course, one thing I mentioned earlier, the best way to know, the best way to know if a kid is coming and going to be in kindergarten in Marshall is to have a relationship with that family already. Well, we have a pretty good relationship with our preschools, and what we do is we give them information about our upcoming kindergarten nights, and in Albion as well, we advertise information about our upcoming kindergarten nights, and we then get lists of names. And then we even talk about, hey, I see you had 3 kids not come to kindergarten night. Could you reach out to those families and make sure they're coming? Because it gives us a better idea to know if they're going to Marshall or going to another school district. What we're able to generate is lists like these. And if everywhere you see in yellow here, and this is a 3-page list, our kids and parents we know who go to preschool in our area and are coming to one of those screening nights on May 16th and May 17th. And then we even call and work with our preschools and with Shamrock to make sure if we know you have a kid who's turning 5 and they haven't been to one of those nights, we give them a call and ask them, hey, can you come to the one Wednesday at Gordon? Or can you come to the one May 2nd at Harrington? And if they can't do those things, we still try to get them at one of these times for screening because they can fill out enrollment papers and get their kids screened as well. So we've been very proactive the last number of years on making sure we know where our kindergartners are and where they're coming from. It's not a perfect science, but it works pretty well. So we remind parents all the things that you need to do over the summer to prepare kids, and we also remind them we like parent volunteers. What questions do you have?
In any given session that you have, how many teachers are involved?
Well, everybody can sign up to come. We want them to come to at least 3 sessions if possible. So at the first 2 sessions, I would say, first session we had almost everybody but maybe 1, and the second session we had almost everybody except maybe 1. So we get pretty good participation by all our kindergarten teachers.
And your secretaries are on hand also?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty good.
So I'll ask my typical question. How are the numbers looking?
The numbers are looking very much like last year's numbers. So we are about 6 rooms right now. I'm not sure what Harrington's numbers are in terms of how many are in your kindergartens right now. With the 3 buildings in Marshall, we're 25. Walters, it might be 26. Megan's probably going to shake her head. But most of them are about 25, and my RK is 18, so it's right at the cap. So about 6 rooms of 25 in the 3 Marshall buildings, and Robert. And the RK we just started this year at Harrington. So, yep. So they're looking similar to that. All right. We always try to find other 5-year-olds, though. So if you know of any, let me know.
I'm guessing you've developed relationships with the preschools here as well in Albion?
Yeah, this is a newer process, of course, but we reach out to some of the preschools here. I know Robert's been working on that. I know Robert mentioned he went over to Crowell with some of his teachers to give them information about the night coming up here May 2nd. We also advertise in the papers on that. As a matter of fact, on the list here, I have a number of people who are from preschools here in Marshall that have already come over to one of the nights in Marshall. One of the things we tried to do this year is make it so everybody's getting the information all on one night. We conducted a parent survey, and that's what parents wanted. Instead of having to come to 3 nights, they wanted to be able to come to one night and get all that information. So even if they come to Gordon on Wednesday night, they're getting the same information. Okay, and if they come to Harrington on May 2nd, they're getting the same information. So trying to streamline the process there to make it a little bit easier for parents.
The next one for Gordon is scheduled for,
Wednesday night, 5:30.
yeah, which is when we have the Cavsman dinner. So the board won't be able to make that.
That's fine. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay, we'll move on to the next academic highlight, the K1 data on growth, K-team teaching and expanding it to grade 1 in 2018-19. Robert Giles.
Good evening, I'm Robert Giles and I am the principal at Harrington. Some highlights, actually first, when back in January we started a team teaching program at Harrington, which allows us to have 2 certified teachers in both our kindergarten classrooms, with the hope that most data reflects on you need to put more certified folks in front of children if you want more positive results. I will say that through progress monitoring up to January, we literally had 13 far below, 12 below, 10 at expectations, and then 8 above. As of March, our numbers were much better in terms of only having 7 far below, 3 below, 8 at expectations, and 22 students who are above expectations. So just in a very short period of time, they've been able to show those teachers, those team teachers, and they are Karen Howard, Kayla Tobias, Danielle Pegg, and Aaron Welke. They have done a tremendous job in regards to taking a new concept, working together for the betterment of those children and all of our babies there, and we can see results. Actually, tomorrow on the 24th, our group of team teachers will go along with Dr. Davis to Sense Academy in Indianapolis to view a similar program. We've talked about it. Some of those folks have came to Albion and came to Harrington and talked to our teachers. This gives them a chance to go actually and sit down and talk with those who are in those same positions there. The only distinctive difference there is since they are K through 5, I believe it was, with the team teaching. So any questions that we may have tried to answer to our teachers in regards to the whole team teaching concept, it can be much clearer as they get a chance to sit down with a couple of grades, a 5th grade and a kindergarten. They get to look at their data, they get to talk about how they evaluate that data, how they use that data, and how they're going to move forward. So we're really excited about that part in terms of continuing that, and as well looking at moving that particular program to 1st grade as well, and eventually, hopefully, to 2nd grade as well, all the way through. The second part piece is Harrington was selected for Marshall Public Schools through an initiative with Western Michigan for the HILL Project. The HILL Project is a high-impact leadership for school renewal. It is a development program for practicing and inspiring principals. The conceptual framework of the HILL Project has 3 major elements. It's evidence-based leadership development called the 7 Dimensions of Learning Centered Leadership. B, 7 research-supported strategic levers for high integrity and fidelity implementation to support renewal activities. C, the 5 levels of learning, including what is important and why, experimental, what to do, declarative, how to do it, procedural, and when to do it, contextual, and what to look for in results and how you make adjustments, evidential. Our particular team for this Hill project is myself, Ms. Maureen Slammer, who is our implementation facilitator, Ms. Jeanette Arts, who is a 5th grade teacher, Mr. Brandon Coates, who is a 4th grade teacher, and Ms. Erin Geyer, who is our RK teacher. Last but not least, there's an initiative that we've started that was started with a conversation that I had with Ms. Michelle Morgan in regards to recruiting students for both of our programs. When you look at it in a larger context, if there's going to be any real true growth within Marshall Public Schools, it's going to come from this community. It is going to come from the 1,000+ students who go elsewhere, who are bused elsewhere, who drive elsewhere for a number of reasons. We have an effort in which we have what we're going to call a Come Home to Harrington campaign, which we will have door-to-door solicitations. We will look at lawn signs and just trying to get into community meetings and different parts. Just go out and talk to folks in this community because it is something that has not been done in a number of years. And the first part of that will start this coming Saturday. We will go to each of this weekend, the housing developments that are here. A good suggestion was made to me about getting a bus and having everybody was going to meet at Harrington in the beginning. We're going to get a bus and have the buses drive up to each particular area. So we get off the bus and go door to door. One of our staff members will be cooking food. We'll have T-shirts for them and just some promotional materials to start the conversation to promote the idea of, again, having children in this community come home to Harrington and as well then come home to Marshall Public Schools. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about all 3 of them. I know I kind of threw all of them in there at one time, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll move to the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes, disbursements, 2 employments, and then an out-of-state field trip.
Yeah, let me read the background for the out-of-state field trip. You can see the other comments under A, B, C, and D. But under Board E, Board Policy 2340 requires all out-of-state field trips to be approved by the board. An optional trip for members of the high school concert and symphony orchestras to travel to Nashville and Memphis, Tennessee, February 14th through 18th, 2019 is being considered. The trip is self-funded by students' parents with costs offset by fundraisers. Participants attend a clinic with a university professor, a professional performance, and various other activities related to the music industry. The cost is approximately $850 per person, with changes to the amount based on choices the participant make on hotel rooming arrangements. It includes meals once they arrive at the destination. Scholarships will be available for students. The trip is not required, so if a student does not want to attend, they are not obligated to do so. In your packet on section 5E is the application that Megan submitted. Megan, are you in the audience? All right. Megan, you did a great job. When you start reviewing this and doing a quick shout out, which I'm going to try to do right now, they're going to see the historic RCA Studio B. They're going to lunch and nosh at Hard Rock Cafe. They're going to go to the General Jackson Showboat. They're going to Vanderbilt University for the orchestra clinic and workshop with the professor. They're going to the Wild Horse Saloon. I've not gone to the Wild Horse Saloon, but they're going to do line dancing and food. They're going to the Frisk Center for the Visual Arts, the Santa Fe Restaurant for dinner, Grand Ole Opry, of course, The following day on Sunday, they're going to go to Graceland and the Mansion Tour. They're going to the National Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Motel, which is really a great legacy exhibits. And they're going to also finish with the Memphis Central Barbecue, which is pretty impressive. So it's going to be quite a trip, and it's going to be quite a learning experience for our kids.
Have a motion?
I move for approval.
Support.
Discussion. Yeah, my daughter's already talking to me about it. So. Okay, we'll start with Larry.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, we'll move on to report of the superintendent, special recognition.
Sure, I want to announce that Gail Matthew fills the position of secretary at Marshall High School. Ms. Matthew is a graduate of the Central Michigan University, where she earned a bachelor's degree with a major in graphic design and a minor in advertising. Madeline Samra fills the position of paraprofessional at Harrington Elementary. Ms. Samra is a graduate of Marshall High School. We have 2 retirements to announce to date. Steve Wissink, hired into Marshall Public Schools in August 1998 as a special education teacher at Marshall High School. Throughout his employment with the district, Mr. Wissink has supported students in different capacities, from class sponsor to being a withstanding athletic coach at the middle school and high school level, including cross-country, track, and volleyball. Mr. Wissink will retire from the district with 20 years of service. Prior to that, I knew Steve Wissink at Star Commonwealth, so it's nice to see him finally get to his level for retirement. And Mr. Jerry Underhill, you're here? Jerry, you still here? Come on up.
I'll have my moment.
You don't get an opportunity to embarrass Jerry too much. Jerry Underhill, hired into Marshall Public Schools on August 11, 1986 to teach 7th grade math at Marshall Middle School. Mr. Underhill has since remained at Marshall Middle School, where his teaching has spanned across 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Throughout his tenure with the district, Mr. Underhill has also served as an athletic coach at the middle and high school level in sports, including basketball, baseball, cross-country, track, and football. Mr. Underhill will retire from the district with 32 years of service to Marshall Public Schools. He also recently participated in a panel discussion we had called the Fishbowl Experience with some of our kids, and they named him among two other teachers as one of the teachers most easily to approach, who is engaging in a positive way with kids and takes the time to understand and know our kids so that they can be more engaged in the public in the educational system. We're going to miss Jerry, so let's give him a round of applause.
So I just have to say, so correct me if I'm wrong in that, I think Jerry is the last
Can you
teacher.
speak in the microphone?
Jerry is the last teacher that was a teacher at Marshall when I graduated in 1987. So I think I might officially be an adult now. Congratulations, Jerry.
Okay, the other item on the report of the superintendent is the leadership team reports. You have a packet under 6B. It's pretty hefty. We have a lot of things going on. One thing you just have to know is that everybody's involved, and we'll be talking about this in the state assessment process right now. But please, if you have any questions at all about the report, bring them up now, or any comments you care to share.
Do you have anything?
Hearing none?
Just thank you for your reports. We like to read them.
And everybody survived M-Step? Not done yet?
Not done yet.
My daughter's done. Oh, that's right. They split them into 2 this year. That's right. I forgot.
You're going to have that professional development on that, so you'll understand.
That's right. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. She was so excited to be done. I was trying to show her.
How is
She was excited, yeah, it's
How
good
is the
stuff.
technology going for MSTEP? Is that going all right in the classrooms and with the computers and all that?
Thumbs up, things are good.
Thank you. I saw in your report that you mentioned about having a longer-term plan for either getting more equipment or replacing equipment that's outdated. So is that going to be something that will come later on? Is that okay? Great. Thanks.
Anybody else?
I have a couple things from reports. I jotted them down, and I just wanted to make sure that the people that were writing them got recognition for them. And I'm sorry if I don't mention you on something that you put in there. But I guess the one was for the Maymester students that are coming to the Shamrock Center. I'm not sure where Michelle is. Is that getting ready to go and starting in May? Okay. Nice, great. And then with the FFA, when I was reading through that report and all the awards, there were just way too many to mention all tonight. But I encourage you, if you get a minute, to look at that, because it sounds like we have some outstanding students with the FFA who are really doing some great work out there, and that goes as well for the sports. I think there was a couple pages of sports and our athletes that are working not only hard in their sport but in academics as well, so representing our school district out there with their grades and what they're doing in the classroom as well. So I wanted to make sure that they got recognition. And then we have a couple teachers. One was recognized tonight, Laura Brownell, and then also Kelly Fitzpatrick, representing our school district, coming up here too. So just a lot of good stuff going on from some of our staff and our students. And then coming up in May is the Hooping for a Cure, the second annual. So don't forget to come to that and support that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to discussion school promotional strategies.
For a number of months, possibly a year or 2 years, we've talked about a communications plan, a promotional plan. And in those discussions, we've talked about not having enough staffing and time to be able to do a real great comprehensive job on this. So we've sought some outside support. We've reached out to Bluefish, and we've talked to Ryan Traver, and had a discussion with him about a proposal where he could come in and help us with what we call our district brand development. And so we're going to break that down a little bit for you today. Becky Jones was the one that negotiated with them to come on board to take a look at this. I'm just going to give you some broad strokes on it. There's going to be brand strategy and marketing plan, creative development, logo design to make sure that we're consistent with the logo that we use when we communicate in paper and on the website and so forth. Tagline development, brand style guide, which is really looking at our logo and whether we use the athletic, aggressive logo of the Red Hawk for athletics. We use the regular Red Hawk, the traditional Red Hawk for our official communications. We use the friendly Red Hawk or a caricature of our Red Hawk uniform for our elementary schools. So we're going to look at that strategy with the leadership team and come back and make some recommendations on that. Along with that, we're looking at social media management. That's near and dear to your heart, Richard. Digital marketing strategy development, digital marketing implementation, and media planning and placement. will be those areas that we'll start focusing on. Right, most recently you saw a survey that generally came out to you so you could give it a shot and take a look at your responses on that. We've developed a stakeholder survey that we're going to be deploying pretty soon. I have to give them the final okay. Our leadership team has vetted that. Our directors have looked at it, and our principals. We looked at purpose and reason for the survey, what questions we're asking and so forth, and what can we learn, and how can that set us up to, number one, understand some of our growth areas, areas that we need to challenge ourselves in changing, communication being one of those that's already in our minds. But we are also talking about what do we do well, how are we perceived next to or relative to other contiguous districts that have borders that we share. And then we're going to talk about what things we need to do next. And once we get that feedback, hopefully every taxpayer in the newly expanded Marshall Public Schools serving Albion and Marshall will have one of these in their hands or a way to electronically link to the surveys so that we can get everyone's opinion, whether they choice out of our district or they have kids coming to our district. So we're really excited about that piece, and that's going to be rolled out fairly quickly. Becky, anything else on that? Now you've tied into the Harrington piece, right? Any questions so far? No? All right, stay tuned.
I just want to mention I have been sending to your wife all of the Battle Creek Public. Obviously, they put a lot of money into a Facebook campaign around attracting new kindergartners, which of course makes sense. It is interesting to see other districts invest in this, and I have seen adjoining districts that are doing this. I think it's one of those things when we've had this discussion. It's hard to spend tax dollars on advertising, but there's a definite connection between the kids we have in the seats and the money that we get from the state. So I think at some point we have to do it. You know, I love Ryan. Love the stuff Ryan does. He does all the work for Oakland. He does a really nice job. Does a lot of stuff for Maida. So
Yeah.
quality, award-winning guy. Does really good stuff. So.
We'll give credit to Bill too, because he was talking about what he did for Oakland.
That sounds very familiar to what we do.
Yeah. And it's real cost effective, which is really outstanding. And it's interesting you mentioned about tax dollars for promotion. We've had that conversation in Lansing and a couple other regional meetings about how our world has gotten to that point where you have to think about promotion and marketing, because it really does come down to the number of students you serve, and also it comes down to the number of pathways you create for kids to find that attractive. So we're trying to work on both ends of that, and we'll see how that approach goes.
The other one I saw was here in this community when Springport had a billboard on the highway, and I wanted to see it the next time I went by on the highway, and they just had it up during kindergarten roundup. So they put it up for 2 months during that period and took it down. So this community's been experiencing that for years now. We've been lucky to not have it as much in Marshall, but
Right.
we cover the whole district at this point. So well done. Well done.
We have gotten some partners that have also are going to help with the cost of advertising for marketing. So I thought that was nice. Some different partners have helped with the cost of printing flyers and all that stuff too. So.
Fantastic.
Good.
Any other questions? action item, award bids for lawn mowing services. Becky, do the background?
Becky, you want to do the background?
Board policy 6320 requires that any single item costing more than $5,000 be board approved. The board is being asked to consider awarding lawn mowing totaling $47,108.50 as recommended by the facilities director.
Oh, okay, so it is the recommendation of the superintendent that action item financials be approved as presented.
Move for approval.
Support.
Discussion?
Can you explain why the cutting and plowing was chosen over the white collar for the Marshall schools? Just looked like they were $14,000 more a year for cutting and plowing, if I'm looking at that right, compared to white collar. It seems like a big difference.
Was white collar the one for Albion?
Yep.
And so white collar doesn't have the capacity to do both Albion and Marshall. So we've split it into two companies, and then that way we don't run into a problem with somebody not being able to mow the lawn. Cutting and plowing has mowed for us in Marshall, and they've done a nice job. And so, and they did the Opportunity High School last year, but we decided to just pick a company for Albion and a company for Marshall. That way the services could be taken care of.
Any other questions? Start with Carrie.
Yes.
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 Action item general.
Yes. Action item general, approve resolution regarding the proposed Calhoun County School District General Fund budget.
The background. As of July 1, 2004, state law requires an intermediate school district to have its proposed general fund operating budget reviewed annually by its constituent districts. The law requires that the budget be presented to the constituent districts and that by June 1st, each constituent district adopt a board resolution expressing its support for or disapproval of the proposed budget. The Marshall Board was presented with the proposed CISD 2018-19 General Fund Operating Budget at the February 26, 2018 meeting. The board will now consider a resolution supporting the CISD's General Fund Operating Budget. Resolution should be in your packet. It is the recommendation of the superintendent that action item general be approved as presented.
Move for approval.
Any discussion? We saw this back in February, so I don't think we had any concerns when we went through it. Okay, we'll start with Lisa.
Yes.
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 Move to board professional development, state assessment process and outcomes.
Right, so we have Don, are you still here? Don Beck? Come on up, Don. Don's going to talk to you about the state assessment schedule and expectations for our district so that you understand what we're involved in right now.
Good evening, everybody. It's time for your favorite topic and mine, and that's state-mandated testing. So I really just wanted to give you an overview of how and when we've been doing our state-mandated testing, and also give you an idea of the time frame and the amount of time that our students spend on it this year, which is significantly less than last year, but it is a time commitment. Before I do that, I do want to recognize, first of all, our administrators for all the time they've put in to preparing for the state-mandated testing by creating schedules and getting parents ready and putting things into their newsletters and making sure that our community is ready for that. And definitely for our teachers and educators because, you know, the scores that we end up seeing in those reports that, of course, show up in the newspaper that are always great for Marshall are telling a story, but what they don't tell is how our teachers end up working really, really hard to herd the cats. And we're not just herding the cats, but we're herding the cats and making them happy to be herded in order to sit and take the tests. And it's a long, long process to prepare the students, and when they're online, get them ready to see what they're going to see before they actually sit down, and then all the education that takes place before that. It's a huge process. So kudos to everybody, and thank you for everything that you do. So as you can see from the papers that you have in front of you, and I'm sorry I don't have it to put up here for you, but of course those of you who live it already know it. At the high school, we tested for 3 days. So it's a very short process at the high school. Then in 3 days, we take care of it, bam, right away. And it's mostly the 11th grade, of course. So the 10th, 11th, and 12th of April, they take care of it, basically half days for the most part. The SAT day itself is a little bit longer, and then they're done. Students who aren't there, they do a makeup day, which is actually coming up quickly. They also do PSAT for 9th and 10th, and this year they split those up into 2 half days. MOHS actually did that at the same way, all right? At Marshall Middle School and at the elementaries as well, they don't have that luxury of doing it in just 3 days. They have to spread it out longer. So a great example is the 8th grade. They gave their half of their 8th grade, because it's all online. We don't have enough technology to just do it in a short time frame. So for the 8th grade, they took all the kids down to the computer lab, and they did half the kids on April 17th, 18th, and 19th for 2 to 3 hours a day. And then they're going to do the other half coming up here this week on the 24th, 25th, and 26th. So that's an example, and you can see, I'm not going to read them all to you, that they'll be done over the coming weeks here. All the time in the background, we've got our special educators who sometimes have students who need longer to take the tests or have other accommodations, and so they're separate and doing those on their own in other rooms and getting the special needs taken care of that they may have. Elementary schools, each elementary school runs their schedule slightly different, and if you turn the page, you'll see I put a sample schedule on the top of the second page, and I gave you Walters. But if you looked at the other schools, theirs are very similar as well, and it's much like what I told you at the middle school, where they split up their 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades with the special education, which is called My Access, taking place in the background. Down at the bottom of the front page, I gave you the overall schedule at a glance so you can see how the testing has taken place. When I've talked to the principals, it's all gone very, very smoothly and well because, like I said, our principals and our educators are very, very good. They're pros at everything they do. They get the kids ready, get them in there. And from what I'm hearing this year, our students are really doing a great job of taking it seriously and working very hard, and I'm sure we're going to see that reflected in their scores. At the bottom of the second page, like I said, I wanted to give you an idea of how much time we've spent testing. So there's the couple grids that show you at 3rd through 8th grade at the top grid how much time that we spend testing. So for most of them, they're between 3 and 4 hours with a couple larger tests. The 5th and 8th grade jump up to 5 1/4 to 5 3/4 hours total testing, and the breakdowns are there for how much for each test. And then the bottom grid tells us how much the high school spends testing, which of course the 11th grade is the longest with 8 1/2 hours of testing split up over 3 days. 9th and 10th is really just one test, the SAT, which is 2 1/2 basically to 3 hours of testing. So that's the brief overview. Like I said, from what I'm hearing, everything is going really, really well. We haven't had any kind of major catastrophes, no fire alarms rung, nothing that is of concern to us yet. We're very, very happy with it. Can I answer any questions for you on this overview?
Can you explain to me what no growth is? You say 101 points of growth.
That's me.
But
I'll explain that.
okay.
I would be glad to explain that. So I'm going to turn it over to
Well,
Dave.
just one second.
Yes.
There is a significant difference in your chart on the second page about how much time's being spent for testing this year versus last year. Can
Yes.
you explain that or address that?
I can. So time spent testing is always a sensitive issue, especially with parents. When we moved to the M-STEP testing in Michigan, a great concern grew because if you look at the testing time grew very, very long. And a cry out came really from the community that we're spending way too much time on these tests. So the State Department of Education vowed that they were going to reduce the amount of time on each test. So what you can see on this second, the top grid on the second page, is the amount of time they've reduced on each test. So if we look at third grade, this year they're spending 3.5 hours of testing. Excuse me, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong part. The estimated total hours for spring of 2018 is 3.5, and then it says times have been reduced from last year's estimated total hours. It was 4 hours last year, so they've reduced it a half an hour. So if you keep looking all the way down, you can see they've reduced them all quite a bit. 8th grade, for example, last year was over 8 hours, and this year they've reduced it down to 5.5, basically. So what they're doing is, due to public pressure and educator pressure, they've reduced the testing down quite a bit. And they've done that by eliminating certain pieces, changing certain pieces, combining certain pieces. And we thank them.
So it seems like, I think it was about 3 years ago, there was a buzz about my children aren't required to take the test. I've not heard that at all this year. Are we hearing anything at all?
Yeah, a few. Interesting, though, there was a comment from MDE a couple years back that said that students aren't required to take the test. The reality is students are expected to take the test. And the only downside on that is, well, from our perspective, is if they don't take the test, they aren't participating. And it goes into our formula in regards to our index on performance and whether or not we get a ding from the Michigan Department of Ed because we're not testing all students. And so the teachers do a really good job of trying to get, and the administrators, and trying to get parents to understand that they just need to participate. And hopefully we motivate them to the level that they're going to do their very best so that we can see actually how instruction and achievement is going hand in hand. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
So I asked Dave Turner to come up and talk about kind of midterm of the assessment. Dave's done a really nice job, and he sent me this data the other day, and I thought, oh, this is really great. The board should see how we're using this information and tracking this information in real time. So Dave, you want to go with it?
Yeah, sure. Sorry that I wish I could post this up for everybody so you could see. So I put together a spreadsheet. Half of the 8th grade students have already taken the M-STEP. Tomorrow, the other half will take it. The gist is we spent a great deal of time prepping our students using exact path, spending a lot of time going over some of the M-STEP pre-questions so that our students were familiar with how to take the test using M-STEP in an attempt so that they're not frustrated with the test taking, rather they're worried more about the material. So our 8th grade staff, every grade's doing that, but they did a really nice job the last couple weeks of getting our students ready, plus what they've done throughout the course of the school year. Everybody's doing that. So this year, we're really trying to recognize our students and create an opportunity to award those individuals and recognize those individuals that are we feel not getting enough recognition in school. So we created 3 different categories. A student that is gold would have to have 2 options to become a gold student. You either score advanced, or you have 115 points of growth. Now, what that gets to your 101 question earlier, we figured that, and this is not exact, but about 100 points is what the state considers 1 year of growth, roughly. I mean, there's no scientific method to it, but that's about what it is. So last year, as 7th grade students, if I scored 1,700 points, I would be at benchmark or above benchmark. This year, an 8th grader, they need to be 1,800. So thus the 100 points or 101 as I get to in the bronze. If I'm silver, I'm either scoring in the proficient category or I have a 110 points of growth. So in essence, 10 points higher than what they would have had last year. And bronze would be 101 points. So we went through, and just some of the basic numbers so far in math. You'll see proficiency. We had 33 students that were above or at benchmark or above, which is 38% of those students that took the test. Of course, 62% are not. So I wanted you to see where we were last year. So the same group of students last year were at 36.7%, which is a little bit lower than the state average, which was actually 36.7, and the state, actually I typed it wrong, but the state was like 37 point something, so we were just a little bit below. This year, you can see we're already above, not a ton, 1.3, but it's still some growth at 3.8. Here's the big thing, though. We wanted to see, we're measuring growth overall. 56% or 56 students scored at least 101 points higher than they did last year. So that's more than half, 65% scored better than they did last year, which I want to celebrate that. Mm-hmm. That's excellent.
Right.
Yeah, I want our overall proficiency mark to be higher than 38, but I'm very pleased with that 65% growth. 8th grade, in terms of the medals, you can kind of see how many were advanced, how many were silver and bronze accordingly in the percentage. So really, 65% of the population that took the test are receiving some form of recognition for their growth so far this year.
Dave,
yeah.
I think it's important, too, to note, I mean, this might be like a no-brainer for us, but the 7th grade being assessed the way they were and then coming into the 8th grade math area, they also have increased rigor. They have new skill sets they have to learn and so forth. So it's not just improving 110 from the baseline that they had last year. It's actually learning new materials, being challenged with higher rigor, and still making those advancements. I think that's really outstanding. So we're working in the right direction.
Absolutely, and that's all we can ask for, at least at this point. Mm-hmm. We're hoping to be above the state average. I don't know what it'll be. If it's 36 or 37, I think we're going to be there. But we'll find out. I won't know really until till August or sometime this summer. Then when you look at the language arts area, of those tested, we're at 59% of our population is above the benchmark, which is unbelievable, because last year that same group was only at 46 or almost 47%. So you're looking at 12 points, percentage points increase so far in our language arts. And I am confident we're going to be above the state benchmark. There's no way the state average is going to be anywhere near 58. No way. Now watch it is. But I can't imagine that it would be.
No way.
No way,
no
Jose.
Way.
All right. So then when you look at the medals, 33% are at gold, 38% are at silver, 14 are at bronze. So only 11 students out of the 773 tested. That's the killer right there. Only 11 kids. Well, I'm going to do the positive. 62 kids grew. 62 kids out of 73 improved 101 or more. 85% of the population. That's some outstanding work by our language arts department there. So the second document I have for you, I'm gonna own it. It's a little controversial. I posted in our cafeteria because we are recognizing. Let me get my notes here. Took a picture of it on my phone. Excuse me. All right. So we're providing. We're going to have an awards ceremony at the end of the school year where we're going to invite parents to come, and students will receive recognition for all sorts of academic things, but gold, silver, bronze will also be how they perform on the M-STEP will also be a part of that. Any student that receives a medal, we're going to provide a free cookout for them in a couple weeks for 8th grade once I have all of the information there. We'll have some special raffles. Actually, we're our PCO was generous enough to donate some money. And all of the gold, silver, and bronze are going to have special raffles that they'll be able to win. We're going to, and Randy's part of this too, the highest math and language arts lunch at Schuler's, because they deserve it. And Randy's buying.
Yeah.
He didn't know that, but he is. And then the last thing is, just like the high school does their honor roll, we're also going to provide information in the newspaper for recognizing those students that have done really well in the M-STEP. So here's the controversial part. Some people are concerned that, and that's this document here, that sharing how students performed, posting it, can make students feel a little bit uncomfortable or frustrated, and you know what, that is true. However, we do recognize students all the time with high honors. We recognize our athletes all the time. They're in the paper. There's 3-4 pages every single week about how they're performing. Some win, some don't win, and this isn't about winning or losing, but this is about letting people know that kids did well. And frankly, when you look at the gold medal, and this was a really powerful thing. I had 2 conversations with parents today that were gold medalists that are actually not very good students academically. They're not. But they had such incredible growth that allowed them to earn that gold medal that their parents were actually in tears of joy, because frankly, normally I call their parents, it's like, what did my kid do now? Well, they earned a gold medal, and the pride that the students experienced and demonstrated it with their parents was phenomenal. And here's something, I've been doing this, I don't even know how long I've been doing it, 20-some years. First time ever, I had 6 kids come up to me today and say, Mr. Turner, I still need to complete the M-STEP, and when can I retake it? Because I want to have an opportunity to get my name up on the board. When have you ever had kids say, I want to finish my M-STEP and or make sure I didn't take a test, when can I take that test? I have never had it. I understand that this can be very sensitive for some individuals, but I think we've gone far too long without recognizing, specifically at the middle school, those students that are top achieving or working hard and achieving their goals. And I think this is one way of doing it. And I understand it's not perfect, but what we've done in the past has given us the same kind of results, so it's time to try something different. And I've seen some really positive things from kids that don't normally do well. So we'll do this again for the second set. They're taking their test tomorrow. I should have they're doing science and social studies tomorrow. And just for your information, my 8th grade teachers will attest to this. Yeah, these tests were only, the state says it only takes 2 hours. Our kids are actually taking longer, going through, double checking their answers. They're taking it more seriously. Pick on Leslie here. She really encouraged her students to write an outline before they actually write their essay, and they did. So the proof is in the pudding with the results that we're getting, and I'm really encouraged and can't wait to see how our other students perform. That's it.
Thank
Stick
you,
in
Dave.
the dismount, I'm out.
Thank you.
All right.
Hey, Dave, and after the second set's gone through the test, will you be able to share that with us too, so we can see how the other half did?
Maybe.
Thanks.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. I'll
Thanks,
send you
Dave.
something.
And
Thanks.
Hey, Dave, last question. Do you still need donations for your?
Oh, the barbecue?
Mhm.
Yeah, and if you want to help cook too, we can use that.
I won't be here. I'll be up north that weekend, but I just wanted to see how
Chuck's
you were
available.
doing with
Come on.
donations. He's going with me.
Oh, okay, maybe not. So yes,
You
I'll
still
take
need
donations.
donations? Okay.
Absolutely. I know, I'll take as many, yeah, absolutely. But 8th grade is, when do I have 8th? It's 2 weeks, isn't it? 2 weeks, and then I think a week after that, or a couple weeks after that is 7th grade, and then like the last week or so is 6th grade.
And you're still looking for like food cards and other little
Yeah.
rewards and stuff, right? Okay.
Absolutely, but PCO really hooked us up. Mrs. Russell, she's going to get me the information or the well, gift certificates, some candy bars, and actually we're doing a treasure chest for the kids in bronze, you know, like when you used to go to the dentist and you grab a little crap. I mean, it's a little something. Why not? It's kind of fun. All right. Now I'm out.
Okay.
All right.
So we have that process. We do the scheduling. We do the assessment. David and his staff are unpacking the data as they go, which is really outstanding because I haven't seen that done yet. So it's really nice to see. Can we put up can we get my slide? All right. Thanks, Taryn.
So Randy, do we get the scores back simultaneously, or is it?
This is, Dave, where did you get the data from on the first half? Yeah, and also we don't look at the final results until they're released, but to be able to use those in dynamic time or real time is allowable by the administrator.
Okay, so we can't put this in the paper.
No, electronically it gets assessed. They can do the analysis and it goes in. The data goes in there. So you've seen me present every year about our MEEP results, our M-STEP results, our ACT results, and now our SAT results. And the dashboard that's been done by the Michigan Department of Education allows parents and stakeholders to log on, and look up any district they want and take a look at the results. What's interesting is probably not a lot of parents have time to do a comparison. And since we're in the midst of this conversation about our contiguous districts, I thought we'd go ahead and throw up some of the results in our comparative districts of Concord, Homer, Marlee, Marshall Academy, Olivet, Springport, and Tecontia. Okay? So with that, the high school, I'm going to try to do this from this area so I can talk in the mic, but the high school state assessment proficiency, they do a combination of proficiency across the whole assessment and come up with one score that represents the district or that building. Right now, the Marshall High School is at 87.52 on proficiency. And if you look then down the line, Springport's at 69, Concord's at 65, Homer's at 65, and Olivet is 62 for the high school proficiency. The next slide, we're talking about growth, and you would expect that if you're high on proficiency, you could be high in growth. Sometimes you can realize that if you're high in proficiency, there's not a lot of room for growth if you're that high. But that's not the case here. We're high on proficiency. We're also highest out of the group in growth at 85.97. Concord is next with 71%, Springport with 63, Homer with 62, and Olivet with 60. So along with that, another thing that they do in a measurement is our high school graduation rates. And this chart shows in our high school graduation rates, Concord reports a 99.76 graduation rate from high school. Olivet reports a 99.68. Marshall reports a 96.17. Homer is at 90%, and Springport is at 89%. But what's really interesting is right here where you're looking at this bar graph here. This bar graph represents the number of students, or the percent of students that are actually going into post-secondary education and training. And with us being at 96.17 and right in the middle of the pack right here, we're actually the highest at 75% of our students going into post-secondary education and training.
Does this include opportunity? Is this high
The
school?
Opportunity High School, no, I'm just talking about traditional high school right now. And the next one after that would be Concord, then Olivet. I'm sorry, Concord, Springport, Homer, and Olivet. The next slide looks at the overall high school index, and that's a combination of all the constructs that they measure in this. And they show that Marshall is at 86.88, Concord at 75, Springport at 72, Olivet at 71, and Homer at 68. And then the final one, which is outside the index, but they use it for the top to bottom listing, and you've seen me report that to you guys annually. When you look at top to bottom, Marshall Traditional High School is at the 77.2 percentile, which means that 23% of the 769 high schools that are rated in this category are higher than are above Marshall High School. 77.1% of that group are lower than Marshall High School in the state of Michigan. To be in that 77th percentile is outstanding work. When we go to the middle school, as David showed, our up-and-comers, the middle school, Olivet is highest on the total assessment or proficiency at 62%, 56 at Springport, Homer at 42, Marshall at 39, and Concord at 39. So it's pretty close towards the bottom part of this graph. For growth, pretty much the same sequence and pretty much the same similarity here, with Olivet and Springport Middle Schools doing really well in the area. For Marshall overall index, the middle school overall index, you would expect that Olivet and Springport are highest. Then we have Homer and Marshall and Concord pretty much all within a equal range. When we look at Marshall middle school top to bottom, out of 795 middle schools, Springport is in the 57th percentile, Olivet's in the 50th percentile, Marshall is at 48.9% percentile, Homer is at the 26.9, and Concord is at 22.1. So we're making moves. If Dave's interpretation of the data and the work that's being done at the middle school, we certainly expect that we're going to be hopping up, and we're looking forward to the final results. And it's really creative for the middle school and the teachers and administrators to be doing what they're doing on incentivizing. I think it's really great for them. So then let's go to the elementary schools. Elementary state assessment on the K-5 proficiency. Marshall Walters Elementary is at 94.57 on total proficiency in their combination. Olivet Fern Persons is at 71.97. And then you have Springport at 88.29. Whoops, sorry. Springport at 88.29. Then you've got Marshall Hughes at 84.02 right here. Then you have Concord and Gordon Elementary at 66.66. Then you've got Homer Fletcher. And then you have Marshall Harrington. And remember, this is from last year's performance. Okay? When we go to the next one, it talks about growth. Growth is relatively similar, except we had a misnomer here. For some reason, Olivet, Olivet Fern Pearson's is like a K3, I believe, elementary. So they didn't get rated out on growth. Harrington is here at the 15.58 on growth from last year. We're really looking forward to seeing that number change. Then it goes Homer, Concord, Marshall Gordon, Marshall Hughes, Springport, and then Marshall Walters for growth is at 97.2. Now, before I get to the top to bottom list, I want to share a little thing that's going on in our communities with these contiguous districts. Small district state assessments, K-8 and K-12 proficiency and growth, are separated out from this group just to report this information, because you're talking about Marlee, which is a K-8 district, right here on the left, right here on proficiency and growth. And then you've got Marshall Academy, which is a K-12. And then you've got Teconcha, which is a K-12. Their N size is small And so they have to be separated out. They can't be compared. They can't disaggregate elementary, middle school, and high school numbers to be able to compare with the other charts that I showed you. So they have to be represented separately. I just want you to know that Marlee, on their proficiency and growth, are the highest in the area. Then Marshall Academy comes in next. These first two bars, and then Taconcha third. And then when you look at high school completion, we already talked about high school completion, and this is how they compare: 99% for Marshall Academy and 89% for Taconcha. But when you look at students going into post-secondary, only 50% for Marshall Academy and 40% from Taconcha are going into post-secondary education and training. One other thing I want to share that's not on the chart: Marlee right now for this current year has 287 students enrolled. That's down from 307 when I was involved with them. So they're seeing a decline even within their own district. And they have 149 students choicing into Marlee from our new district boundaries. And a lot of that's historical with Albion students going in. But 149 represents 52% of their student enrollment in Marlee are students that could be going to our schools. 52% of their district is made up of Marshall Public Schools and Albion School District. And then when you look at Marshall Academy, they have an enrollment of 275 students. Are you ready for the number? 213 of them are choicing into the Marshall Academy from Albion and Marshall. 77% of their enrollment population is from our district. And with Taconcha, they have 245 students, K-12. That is the lowest I've seen them go. I've watched them go continually down in enrollment, 245. They only have 12 students that are choicing from Marshall Public Schools, which is only 5%. But when you have a districts that are 245, 275 for K-12, it's a difficult challenge at best. They're doing their best that they can with that number, but you can know that it's limiting what they can do, and they have to rely heavily on online learning to be able to get through that process.
What was the drop at Marlee again?
Pardon me?
What was the drop at Marlee again?
They were at 300. The highest I got when I was there as superintendent was 209 or 309, and they're now at 287. They're still over 60% school of choice, but so is Penfield. You know, so you got to kind of measure that with a context. And then when you look at the elementary overall index, we have Marshall at Walters at 95, Olivet Fern Persons at 89, Springport at 84, and then we have Hughes at 82, Marshall Gordon at 71. Then it goes Marlee at 70, which is within one of our number. Then it goes down from there: Concord, Marshall Academy, Homer Fletcher, Taconcha, and then Harrington is at 32.83 in the overall index. And they take into consideration the different socioeconomic factors as well. So that's how the index gets established. I want to share something, though, a really nice highlight for our elementary, in particular for Walters Elementary. This is the elementary top to bottom ranking. Walters is at 81 percentile, meaning only 19% of the 1,467 elementary schools included in the top to bottom across the state are higher than Walters is. And then we have Hughes coming up at 55%, Springport at 51, Gordon at 45, then it goes 39 for Concord, and then it goes down to 29 or almost 30 for Marlee. Marshall Academy's at 29, then 25 for Homer. Taconcha's at 20.1. Marshall Harrington and Olivet persons were not rated on the top to bottom. This is one way that they take the assessment data that we do right in the classroom with our teachers and works it all the way through with linear progression and so forth, different statistics. They take a lot of things into consideration of socioeconomic, on ethnicity, on grades, on 3 years of growth and those types of things, and they collapse that into these matrix that they put on the dashboard for parents to take a look at. But I hazard to guess, when we start this survey we talked about with Bluefish, they're going to be asking, how do you see Marshall in academics, the strength of Marshall in academics compared to the other, these other districts? And when that question comes up, we'll know whether or not teachers or stakeholders are aware or not aware of the reality of it. And then once we know what the reality of it is, what are we going to do about it? And you can go online and look at the dashboard. One of the things I found was really interesting was, out of this whole area, we are the only district that has a sizable disaggregated population of African American and children of color to be reported statewide, to reach that number that can be reported statewide out of all these area schools. So yes, their overall enrollment's lower, obviously lower. But also the proportionality is going to be small as well, as far as having children of color being served in the districts. And one of the things we're very excited about, the statistics. If you go on the dashboard, you can pull out African American students to find out how successful they are in the traditional high school or the Opportunity High School or even at the NYCA. And you'll find that we are way above the state average. The state average, don't quote me, I think it's around 72 or 70, well, around 72 or 74% for high school completion. We're upwards in 88% for African American males and 94% for African American females. So to be able to tell that story at some point is going to be really important for us, so that our communities feel comfortable, and have faith in our abilities to be able to educate all kids to be able to be successful.
So, Dr. Davis, the middle school proficiency seems to be a lot lower than the high school, but the high schoolers come from the middle school. So do you think that it's mostly just the middle schoolers may need that incentive to really work at it, and it's not a reflection of where they're at? Why do you think that the middle school is so much lower?
Well, I think our teachers could probably answer that better, but I think it's a mixture of both. If students don't see the point in it, it's very hard for them to perform up to their level. Some students are going to always perform at the highest level they can provide. Some students will just simply go through and do their check. I think Dave Turner was talking about AC/DC. Sometimes that happens. The other thing is, it's a really critical point of development that goes on between our 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. And there's a lot of benchmarking that goes on, a lot of new and different and more intensive rigor that happens between one grade and another. And so I think the testing process is challenging at best through those grades anyways. But what we're trying to do with the Incentivize is to help the kids find value in whatever way we can to be able to do the best they can on those assessments. And it really serves the district for us, serves the teachers to understand how well they're doing in instruction. It serves the district well. And while it originally wasn't intended to be a comparison among districts, it's long, that horse is long out of the barn. Bottom line is, that's what they've been using the data for, so we have to join in with that process. But I mean, I don't know, Dave, you want to venture a guess at who else wants to say something about it? Yeah. Right. so we can do that, and historically, I can tell you we're, especially when you're talking about K-8, middle school has always been a little bit of a struggle, but our elementaries, most of our elementaries as well as our high schools, are always in the top 4 in the region. So we're talking about Hastings, Gull Lake comparison, Vicksburg, Portage Northern, and Marshall. Sometimes Portage Central as well. So those are the higher performing, but I kind of hesitate to say that a little bit, because if you take our district and compare it to most like districts across the state, there's a formula that they do that talks about the most like districts, and there's like 12 of them that we compare with, and I can bring that data back. I think there's a way to get that as well as on the dashboard. Yeah, well, let me correct one perception that you shared. We're not losing students more to Harper Creek than we're gaining. I know. I'm just saying that to make sure that I'm just saying that that's we need to make sure that those, and Olivet, they're receiving 66 more kids out of our district than are actually going into our district. So they have a net gain of 66 students from our region as well. The reason why we did this comparison, Becky, was because we wanted to look at our contiguous districts that have long-standing been drawing students out of the Albion Community District historically, and trying to figure out how we can get the messaging out there to demonstrate that Marshall Public Schools, with our pathways and our performance and how well the teachers are getting achievement, is one of those strengths that we need to put out there publicly. Yes, we have. And we can do it again. When the final results come out, we can look at our most like districts from across the state, and we can also look at the whole entire county. Actually, I've given you a report on our own top to bottom regionally in the Southwest Michigan region that goes from Jackson to the lake and goes down to Indiana and Ohio. Okay?
Any other questions? Okay, we're going to move to public comment. Again, we ask that you keep any comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I wanted to address the board one more time on behalf of the Marshall Teachers Association. My name is Johanna Schulz, and I'm the president. I serve on the executive board with Kristen Biggs, the vice president. Deb Veal and Julie Underhill are our co-secretaries, and Emily Parsons is our treasurer. This year, our negotiating team is myself and Kristen Biggs, and Tracy Haroff and Mary Casagranda, and Shannon Robinson. I've been a leader within the association for about 4 years, and when they asked me to step up into that role, I was probably one of the youngest elected officials within the association. And I think Kristen and I are probably the youngest leadership team, is my guess. I don't know. Sandy can probably check for us. But it's a heavy lift that they've asked us to do, and we don't take it lightly. When I started negotiating 4 years ago on behalf of my colleagues, each time we sat at the table, there was a board member and the superintendent were present with us. This year, when we've started to try to work towards setting up a schedule for that, we've been informed that there will not be a board member, and Dr. Davis will not be present with us this year, and that there will be a lawyer instead. The only time I miss a table is I'm a mom. I'm a single mom, is because my kids need me at home, right? Or they need me to take them to see their Uncle Dan. My colleagues have asked me to do a really important job, and I value that quite a bit. And every time I'm at the table, if my kids aren't with their dad, they're at daycare. And it's usually that they're at daycare because their dad works for the federal government. So when I step away, it's hard for me because, again, it's my kids. I'm a single mom. The divorce thing's a new thing for me. I step away from my family to advocate because I love my colleagues and I love my students. So I'm asking that you value my time, that you value my team's time this year. Sorry, bumped that. And that you're present at the table and listening to our concerns. And that you save our district's hard-earned money. And please, let's hold off on the lawyer until we've had opportunity to sit and talk. Thank you.
One thing that was mentioned there that needs to be embellished upon a little bit is I will be present for the negotiations, but I'll be in the back room. Our lawyer is coming in because there's a lot of prohibitive subjects of bargaining we want to address as far as issues that may still be in the master agreement. And so there's a lot of things that we're going to get guidance from in regards to truant. So that's the purpose of that.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Emily McClelland. I'm an AmeriCorps Vista serving at Star Commonwealth and Marshall Public Schools with a focus on Harrington Elementary. On a lighter subject this evening, we do the weekend food program over at Harrington Elementary. And this last January, we lost our funder. So we scrambled together to get funding for the rest of our program because we had told the students we would do 16 more weeks of weekend food packs that provides food for them for the weekend to close the food insecurity gap that some of our students are facing here in Albion. And we have now raised $11,387 since February to help the program continue this year and to serve 30 weeks next year.
Outstanding. Good job.
Also, tomorrow evening at the Bohm Theater here in Albion from 7 to 9, we are showing the Resilience film, The Biology of Stress and the Science of Hope, that goes along with a lot of the teacher trainings that have been happening this year through Star Commonwealth. So it does primarily focus on ACE study and how that affects our children in our schools.
Thank you.
Good evening to the school board. My name is Patricia Taylor. We know this record, we know this song. What else must it take to go wrong? I'm talking about bullying, bullying. An ongoing issue of harassment, bullying, and intimidation has been going on since 5th and 9th grade against my granddaughter. I have made many attempts to save her from this vicious bullying from the students. My attempts to the school staff hasn't been a successful relationship. Since September 2017, I talked to assistant principals. He said give him a chance to work it out. It has been 8 months and nothing has been done. An incident happened with Angel. My granddaughter's name is Angel and another student. I called September the 13th and I talked to the superintendent and told him what was going on. He said he would talk to the staff. He have to build a case on the students. He asked me, did she fuel the fire? Did she fuel the fire? I quite didn't understand what he meant. Did she fuel the fire? Then after he asked me, did she fuel the fire? I said yes. Then after I hung up the phone, I said no. Did she fuel the fire means different things to different people. So to me, did she fuel the fire mean did she start it first? No, she's never in her life ever started nothing first. People have always bullied on her. Then I went to, in September 13th still, no, that was February 14th, 18th. I went to Parent Teachers Conference. And that was my first time ever seeing Mr. Hutchison. I've never seen Mr. Hutchison never had a one-on-one talk with him until April the 10th. I usually talk to the assistant principal about all these. All the girls came from, now my granddaughter has been bullied from 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th grade. And the kids, the same girls come from Alvin. They went over to Marshall Middle School and Marshall High School. After 8 months, almost been 8 months has gone by. And there was an incident April the 10th. And with one of the bullies. And I called the superintendent again, April 11th, told the secretary to tell him what was going on. I haven't heard from the superintendent yet. But April the 16th, he did have the principal, come to Albion and have a meeting with me and some more people up to the Opportunity School. So we talked about the bullying, and he asked what could we do about the bullying. So some other people that was in the meeting, they suggested to get a bullying committee together with some different people like Dave Gilbert and some more other people to get a bullying committee together. But I'm willing to agree with the bullying committee, but it's not about I don't know how the bullying, it's about the kids. See, what comes out of their mouth and it's in their heart. They're so vicious and mean and cruel to my granddaughter. She's been coming home crying when she was in 7th, 8th grade. So I told her, since the school system are not going to do anything about it, you have to defend yourself. And that's what she's been doing, defending herself. She's been talking back to him, writing notes, because it has built up in her from 5th, 6th, 7th grade that I've never seen nothing like this. Okay, 8 months, like I said, had gone by. So me and the assistant principal, we talked about it, the principal, and he said, he told my granddaughter that if any of the kids come up to her and call her names or whatever, come to him and tell him what's going on. This is happening in the classroom too. So the teachers need to be made more accountable, because in September, I told the teachers to sit my granddaughter up front. They did. But the kids still calling her names and whispering and talking about her in class. I said, how can you hear that? Because they saying it out loud. And the teachers tell them to be quiet or whatever, tell them to be quiet and stop talking about her. Now I'm reaching out to the board to help me, to help my granddaughter. It took 8 months for someone to acknowledge that this may be really a problem because of the assault that took place in the bathroom. That it was videotaped by cell phone, recorded that malicious, slanderous, my granddaughter's name. Your handbook says any student that uses an electronic device to record a fight can be subject to the same disciplinary action as students involved in the altercation. Publishing a fight to others may constitute a more severe penalty. So the handbook to me is not true, because the students that were in the bathroom taking pictures of it, putting it all on social media. I look forward to you reaching out to me and my granddaughter. This needs to stop, and we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I attend Marshall High School. My name is Angel Wilson. I have been bullied since 5th and 9th grade. My grandma talked to my teachers in September to tell them to sit me up front because people be bullying me. But they still bully me by saying stuff in class. All the teachers say, stop saying stuff about her. I talked to the assistant principal and the principal. They never did nothing about it. My grandma told me you better start sticking up for yourself in the 7th grade and 8th grade because I came home crying. It's been 8 months that they never did nothing. They pick on me in the hallways, cafeteria, and classrooms. The same girls that came from Albion to Marshall be bullying me. No child in the world should be bullied. It makes them sad, depressed, and can't focus in class. Please help me and my grandma stop this bullying at Marshall High School. I'm crying out for you for help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
Randy, I'll follow up with you on that.
for speaking.
Absolutely.
Any other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Scott Hutchins. I'm the principal at Marshall High School, and I want to personally thank Pat and Angel for coming up and speaking this evening. I know it took a lot of courage for them to do that. I want to let you know as a board and superintendent that Mrs. Wilson came to me, or excuse me, I actually reached out to her, and I am being as proactive, I feel, as I can be with the situation. Angel, you said it exactly right. No child deserves to be bullied. No child should feel afraid, scared of anything. And I just want to make it known that we are committed to making sure that Angel feels safe, committed to following through with her grandma's request and taking care of her daughter. But as I told Pat, it's not something that's going to be overnight. It's not something that's going to take just one person. And that's why, as she said, I reached out to Mr. Bonner from the Albion community to try and form a bullying committee and look at harassment, look at the way students are treating each other, so that, again, Angel and any other student is not facing what she is going through. So we remain committed to making sure that she is safe. And again, I want to close by thanking both of them for having the courage to come up, and because I know their heart's in the right place and they're doing it for the right reasons.
Any other public comment? Okay, can I have a motion to go to executive closed session to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining of a school district or public school academy employee or school board member if the named person requests a closed hearing?
Support.
Start with George.
Yes.
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 So we will return in here to open session after the.
Actually,
we're going to stay in here.
we're going to stay in here, so the audience is going to have to step out while we have the discussion. We'll open the doors when we go back into